So the last topic I have, thought this would be a fun one.
What's the meaning of life?
It's from a recent video,
Uh-oh.
which was titled, If You Disagree with Your Music Teacher.
Oh, man.
Before I get into the questions, any comments?
Okay, Bijan, it's time to fess up. Yes, you probably would rate me as being a very patient teacher, wouldn't you?
It's funny, I remember I'd never, at least on the first saying, whenever Robert would tell me something, I would never do it. The thing is, I'd argue about the lesson, but then I'd go back home and do it and come back, and then there'd be something new to argue about. But I remember there was one lesson in particular where Florence, you want to tell this story?
Yeah, this is priceless. This is in the loft not so many years ago, and you were playing the Liszt Sixth Hungarian Rhapsody, which of course ends with the very quick virtuosic octave section that goes on and on and on for several pages. And I was explaining to you how you had to do your technique with the wrist in order to get the speed, otherwise you'd never get the speed up.
Right.
And you said, well, that's okay. I said, well, you'll never get it up to speed that way. And I said, well, okay. And at that point, Florence just said, she was across the room. She said, "What are you saying?" She was like, she couldn't believe it.
This is unacceptable.
And I knew that the way you worked, and you probably, I'm sure you're still the same way, is that the way you learn is by rejecting and questioning every single thing, and that's the way you assimilate information instead of blindly doing it without understanding it and later seeing the value in it. You want to, just figure out why, and if you don't see why, those questions help you to come to terms with it. I would say this, though, that there could have been a lot of teachers that, with the way you learn, could have a very tough time, especially teachers with some ego.
Oh,
because
man.
You are not a good student for somebody who maybe has an ego, because
Which I've experienced in the past.
but whatever works. So there was an actual question
Well,
here.
it's funny you say that, because that is actually exactly what Bob said in the video for that one. Was exactly what you just kind of said, as questioning and learning,
Right,
and still taking in the information however you can.
Right.
So,
And everybody learns differently. And, you can't teach at someone. You have to teach with someone, find where their head is at. It's not a science. It's not an exact science, boom, step 1, 2, 3, because everybody learns differently. I've had students, for example, even though, there's a progressive course of study, of repertoire, and occasionally I've had a very, very talented student who just, leaped from one level to about 10 levels higher just because they really wanted to and were willing to practice hard, and they were talented. And, it's important for a teacher to recognize sometimes to allow a student to try something that's outlandish.
Well, I guess 2 points on my part. One, I'll just say as defiant as I am, I also think it is important to, as a student, go into a lesson with an open mind, and because everybody has something to offer, and everybody has something different to offer, and you may not agree with it, or you may not want to implement it long term in your playing, but just hearing the teacher out, I think, is good no matter what, just to see where it takes you. And who knows, maybe you'll later on want to implement it. And
well, I had the interesting experience at the Manhattan School of Music studying with Constance Keene. Now, I had studied with my father from the time I started, except for some master classes at the Mozarteum in Salzburg. He was my only teacher, and great teacher. And there I was at the Manhattan School of Music with another great teacher, phenomenal pianist. And some of the things she showed me initially were so antithetical to everything that was ingrained in my brain. So I just listened and didn't say anything. And because I was there studying with her, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. And every single thing she showed me, even if it seemed completely wrong, I would try it for the week before I would make any judgment about it.
Right. And my second point here. So yeah, as far as questioning, I think questioning is a very important thing, and understanding why you're doing something. And I think in jazz, more so than classical, it could also affect the time. Because, for example, I don't know if I should mention this, but I'll keep him unnamed. My private teacher at Manhattan School of Music, I love him. But, for example, he likes to have his students work on voicings and transposing in 12 keys. And that's something that takes a lot of time. So another reason I want to that I question and ask why is because I want to see if it's worth investing my time to do it. And it's funny, we argue about it a lot, and then I do it during the week and I come back and have it done. But we still argue. And one thing I wanted to I commend you for, you never really restricted my direction as far as repertoire. You kind of gave me freedom with that.
Of course, I had you study a diverse range of period styles and techniques and all of that.
Right.
But
that's, whereas the fingering may be something more practical and something you just do right away. Something like spending a year on voicings, or choosing to learn a Beethoven sonata, or choosing to learn this concerto or that concerto. That's a long-term project that will take months, if not years. So I think it's definitely important to understand and agree with what you are doing, because you should be doing what inspires you and what you want and what you think will benefit.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to motivate a student to practice. Is the most important thing, is to make them want to, see some vision of something that is worth the intense work. Because you know, any artist knows that the only way to achieve anything is by locking yourself in a room for many hours working really hard. And you have to have something that you have such a passion for, or it's pointless. And so you can't make somebody just, do nothing but a year of Czerny exercises. And there are some teachers, by the way, who believe that, for the first 6 months or the first year, it's nothing but scales and arpeggios. Another story for another podcast.
Yeah.
But interesting other thing that I thought of when you were talking about the idea of questioning is my daughter Jennifer's violin teacher, who she studied with before going to conservatory, William Fitzpatrick. He would ask questions, and that is his entire way of teaching to such a tremendous extent, getting the wheels turning, in a student. Do you like that? What do you like about it? Why are you playing this way? Because you're not just trying to tell a student how to play this note to this note to this note, because you end up, with a machine who can copy. The idea is to bring out the individual voice of that person. Exactly. And if you could do that, you can be a truly great teacher. And
that's something, as an educator, I've kind of gone away from method type teaching and teaching to method, but believing that the method is the student, and you have to teach to the student, because everybody has their individual needs and desires and ways they learn and ways they relate.
I like that. The method is the student. Exactly. You should patent that. Trademark.
So on music teachers, this is the comment. I have 2 questions from this video. Okay. We haven't even gotten to the questions, but can get to them very quickly, I believe. This one is from Matter. I think one of the most important questions for all is how to distinguish a good teacher from a bad teacher in a short period of time. Can you give advice on this, Robert?
Yes.
You take this one.
Number 1, teacher must show clearly what the student should be doing the 6 days of the week that they're not at the lesson. There should be enough work clearly in your mind at that end of that lesson that you've got more than a week's work to do, and you know exactly what needs to be done and how to do it. That is the most important thing. How to practice. A great teacher will show not just correct wrong notes and assign material, but will show you how to practice, whether it's teaching English composition or teaching how to play an instrument. And the second thing is, can you sit down and play something from the beginning to the end without stopping? I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but can you get from the beginning to the end? And hopefully, if you've been studying for any length of time, you have more than one piece. And then this might seem like, duh, but I can't tell you how many students I've gotten from other teachers who studied for years, and I say, okay, very good, let's see, the very first lesson, I want to see what level they're at, play something. What should I play? Well, anything at all, anything. And of course, the first thing they do is open up the music, and I go, oh, do you know anything from memory? And no, they don't. Okay, that's fine. And they struggle being able to play through, they can't get through anything. A good teacher will teach you to play something, even if it's on the flute. My wife Florence might teach hot cross buns, but it's going to be a really good hot cross buns out of that little kid. Right. Same thing with piano. It doesn't have to be a virtuosic piece, but it should be played from beginning to end with solidity and beauty. And if you don't have that at the beginning, then you're probably never going to get it from that teacher.
Yeah. And something else I guess I'll add to that is the teacher should be somebody who really inspires you to work for hours and to really want to drive to get better and to be anxious to work on something and come back to them and have them give you more stuff. And I know somebody like Barry Harris in the jazz world is like that, as well as John Riley, yourself. You were that way with me, Bob. So having somebody who really drives you and they show you something and then you're like, wow, I can spend the next 10 years on this.
Right.
Great.
Without getting discouraged from it.